All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I am doing a little bit of a test here. This is Citizen JV. I have a guest here. He goes by Archamealion, and I want to just talk a little bit about the Elder Scrolls for Oblivion in general versus that opposite that of the remaster that recently came out of this past month of April as a shadow drop. And so, Archamealion, I have a question for you. Did you ever play
Yo,
this game?
I mean, I played the original Elder Scrolls. The or should I say, the Oblivion. I played Oblivion
Okay.
when it first came out, and I'll be honest with you, if I had any kind of real bias in terms of these types of games, I gotta say that Elder Scrolls Online wasn't really kind of like my thing. I mean, the whole Tamriel thing, I just never really got into it. But again, my bias is very much towards Oblivion and Skyrim, which now rumor has it that a lot of these games are tying into each other. Like the maps themselves are tying into each other. So Oblivion ties into Skyrim and so on. And it's kind of fun to think that there is a ginormous map that ties to all these, and now that they're kind of doing this awesome remaster, mind you, I have not seen this new game that they've come out with. I've heard good things, and again, I can only base my opinion off conjecture at this
Mm-hmm.
point, but I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that they actually decided to do it.
Did you by any chance like having any what was your first experience with this game when you first initially played it back in the day? I mean, did you play it on PS3, Xbox 360, PC?
Oh, it was definitely the PS3.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, it kind of had like this whole, like like a open world, kind of like a 3D version of what, like kind of like a RuneScape feel to it, but
Mm-hmm.
instead of like it just being one part of the map where it's dangerous, it could be a fight anywhere, and kind of like Skyrim, you can pick a fight anywhere. So I don't know. There's definitely an ooh and ah factor to the game. Like
Mm-hmm.
like I really didn't know what to expect. I mean, I wasn't expecting to be so immersed in the game itself. It just it that's what it does. Like if you're really into these campaigning open world games and stuff like that, like Oblivion and Skyrim and stuff like that, it just has this kind of uh, fictional magic that just kind of draws you in, and then you find yourself you know challenged with like different decisions which will affect your storyline, like a lot of games do, like kind of like
Yeah.
Infamous.
Yeah. What did you when you first? I mean, other than the experiences that you just recently explained, what exactly did you? What exactly was your experience with it in terms of like gameplay, leveling, or just like the overall world structure of itself? I mean, what did you think about the whole entire the way how it all just not really planned out, but just the way how it just basically immersed you into a very interesting and intricate world like Oblivion is.
um I mean, as far as gameplay was concerned, at first I thought it was kind of cheesy, but again, you got to keep in mind this is kind of, when I say cheesy, it's just because like the graphics weren't like super phenomenal, and I mean I can understand that. I mean it's not like you're gonna have high expectations when you're still playing games like that. It's kind of like the first beta of all of them. You know what I mean? Well, I
Mm-hmm.
heard this one before that, but I never got to play that one. But this was a first for me. So I mean, so playing the game, it just kind of it was kind of cheesy, but it was fun. Like you knew what to expect after playing it for a little while. You know what I mean? And the gameplay was pretty smooth. It wasn't, you know, I mean, it kind of had like similar drawbacks like you would find in Skyrim with characters when they would die and they would just glitch all over the place.
Yeah.
It's and it was funny, like you're just kind of like laughing because you hear like this boot just smacking all over the place,
Yeah.
going all over the place, and you're just kind of laughing because it's just like, what the hell just happened? You're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
but again, like if you're truly immersed in the storyline, though, you know, that's what kind of makes it magical in its own
Yeah.
way.
Did you ever explore any of like the guilds, like the like the thieves guild or the fighters guild or the mages guild or even the dark brotherhood? I mean, did you do any of that? I mean, what did you think about those if you did ever join those factions in the game?
Actually, well, I went through the game more than once, to be fair, but first time I played it, I actually went through all of them. I mean, originally I went in town where the sewers were and got invited to the Thieves Guild. It was like the very first thing.
Okay.
I mean, and then after I got involved with Thieves Guild, there's a lot of people that were kind of talking about the Dark Brotherhood, which, again, I was kind of excited because it was kind of like, this very discreet assassins group and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's it's after you get through like the second playthrough. I mean, honestly, I feel like these types of groups and stuff like that, they're unavoidable, but you kind of have to choose whether or not you want to be a part of them. I mean, you can opt out, but I feel like you'd be denying yourself a big part of like the fun, really like a really fun part of the storyline. You know what I mean? Like you'd be denying yourself a lot of different cool abilities and stuff like that your character will now take on. Uh, when you're in the Thieves Guild and stuff like that, you're mastering skills like pickpocketing and picking locks and things like that that are super crucial, and it can be really fun if you decide to really master these types of skills and stuff like that, or even your ability to, when you're in the Dark Brotherhood, and you're kind of have like this whole assassin sneak ability, which you
Yeah.
kind of, I mean, all those things are real neat, and and then it becomes fun because then like all the side quest characters, like the NPCs in the game that aren't like main quest characters, you can kind of mess with.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you went through the guilds maybe once or twice. Between, I would say, opposite that of the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood, of those two guild factions, basically in Oblivion, which one would you think would be your most and least favorite of the two? Just out of
Uh,
curiosity.
Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, like, can we include the Mage Guild inside that question too?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any of the guilds really, but just the two, in a manner
All
of
right. Well,
speaking.
I say the most interesting guilds, in my opinion, are definitely the Mage and the Dark Brotherhood guilds, due to the fact that there's like a lot of ooh and ah factor. The spells and magical, uh, abilities and stuff
Abilities.
like that
Yeah.
are, yeah, they're amazing in the Mage Guild. Don't get me wrong. I feel like the mage guild is kind of like the upper class because they definitely act it a little snobby in my opinion. Just because that's just how they talk. You'll see what I mean if you play. And the Dark Brotherhood would be like one of the more interesting groups as well. So I mean, I feel like the Dark Brotherhood and the Mage Guild are probably the two best ones. But if I'm being honest, the Thieves Guild is probably the least interesting because it's just unfortunately a very short-lived experience. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I mean, if there was more to the storyline with them and, uh, more involvement, I think it might be more interesting if the abilities were able to keep up with the other guilds. But again, like I say, the top two for me are definitely Dark Brotherhood and the Mage.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that though too, because for me, I never really experienced the mages or the fighters guild. The other guilds opposite that of like the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild. For me, I did like the Dark Brotherhood to a certain degree. I did like its quest line. I did like the fact that you were able to get certain types of rewards from different types of rankings that you get in those guilds, right?
Hmm.
But in the Thieves Guild, for me though, I always felt that it's what I like in a game to where it gives me that ooh and ah factor. I didn't have that very much in Dark Brotherhood. It was amazing. I loved it, but I think for me though, I guess playing being a Skyrim veteran player because I played it a lot back in the day, and I still play it once in a while on PlayStation 5. But for me, for the Thieves Guild in Oblivion, it's just that you had to do a lot in order to achieve a next ranking, and I like that rank system. And so I think when it came to the Thieves Guild though too, getting very towards the end of the quest line where you have to do the ultimate heist. You have to do a couple of things before you finally get to the ultimate heist of all time in the guild, to where you have to steal an Elder Scroll. And, doing that, I always, I redid it again recently on a live stream series on my channel. And so when I went through that again, I'm just like, damn, this still freaking hits. It was just something about it that really just connects in a way to where it's not like what it is in real. I mean, you can't do that in real life because this game is it's a type of virtual reality, but not VR. To where it's like you're immersed into a world, you're immersed into something that you never really thought they would ever get into. I thought that in Skyrim it was it felt so different, but in Oblivion it was just something that I thought that it was more fleshed out in terms of its story and its quest design and the way how you were just able to rank up every single time when you do every different quest in that faction. And that's what I loved about it. And so what did you really think about the Mages Guild specifically, other than the Dark Brotherhood and Oblivion? What did you like about the Mages Guild specifically?
Well, when you got the tombs, which are like these spell books that you get inside
Yeah.
the game, to essentially learn these new abilities, it kind of made fun, and it seemed like it kind of made the impossible possible. You know what I mean? Where you just it very much had kind of like the whole Skyrim feel to it, with the different abilities that you can learn
Right.
inside the game. You know what I mean? It was fun. Like again for the game that it is, like the age of that game, and the dynamics and stuff like that. I mean, it's no Skyrim, but it definitely, I feel like it's what started it all. It was like the Nirvana of games. It's what
Yeah,
started it all.
absolutely. What did you think about did you ever like create your own spells rather than just like buying them?
Um, the truth be told, I don't remember if that was even a factor. If you could create your own.
Yeah, you can create your own. You have to like get into the arcane university and you can create your own spells by, getting get certain types of sigil stones from the Oblivion gates in the game because you can close the Oblivion gates.
I think see, it's been definitely been a while. I can't remember. I know there was kind of like an alchemy factor. I think that involved being able to create different things, so it's possible.
Okay.
It's I honestly don't remember. It's been a while since I've played the game. At least as far as the mage guild is concerned.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Another question I have for you as well. Have you thought about maybe trying to get into the remastered if you were to go back into some of the campaign games other than being a battle royale person as much as you
Oh,
are?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like, definitely. I mean, it would be nice to, I mean, like, now that we are in more of a modern day age in terms of, uh, frames per second and quality in terms of graphics and stuff, especially with these faster processing consoles and stuff like that we're now playing on. Like, I gotta say that, now that I've started playing on PS5, I can definitely see, the allure of having that at your disposal. But to be able to take a game like Oblivion and remaster it so that you're having like the same type of quality that Skyrim originally came in with, I mean,
Yeah.
that's got to be pretty awesome. I would love to sit there and get my hands on it. And honestly, and if kind of like the Resident Evil games when they did a remaster and stuff like that, and they started adding all these fun factors, I can't wait. I mean, it's kind of like what I heard something potentially in the works. What, Skyrim 2 is potentially something that's coming out in the works. I don't know if that's true.
Well,
Maybe that's rumor or
it's called The
hearsay.
Elder Scrolls 6.
Right. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
it's called The Elder Scrolls 6.
I want it. I'm telling you, I played a lot of time on Skyrim. You know what I mean? I mean, if I'm being honest, Skyrim kind of ruins Oblivion in terms of graphics, and you kind of veer towards the Skyrim game more than anything else.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're a fan of like nostalgia and stuff like that, and you really like the Oblivion game, and like now that you're talking about remastering that it can kind of keep up with the Skyrim graphics, I imagine that it's going to be a whole different dynamic. If I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well, because going through, playing through Oblivion Remastered, and watching a lot of OG gameplay from the original game back in the day on YouTube, I can definitely say that, and playing it so much as well, that the remastered to me feels like it's the more of the definitive way. I think a lot of people are actually saying that it's the more definitive way to play the game rather than just going back to the OG. But the fact of the matter is, to me, though, I do feel like that there are some people out there that will eventually would say that I would rather play the OG than the remaster. But again,
Really?
I mean, I'm not saying that to be 100% factual. It's not. It's just that because, I feel like that there is a two different type of dynamic when it comes to modern day gamers as to old school gamers like you and I are to a certain
Okay.
degree. And so that's why I'm saying I think when it comes to, OG game players like you and I are, we tend to like go back to like playing the original game rather than just like playing a gussied up fully remastered or fully remake of a game that we played back in the day. And so that's what I think. But again, I'm not putting any words into anybody's mouths. It's just that it's my perspective on that, to where I really think that maybe there are people out there that have like a certain type of 50-50% dynamic. Okay, do I want to play the remastered or do I want to play the OG? And so but like I said again, but the majority of the people that I've been hearing through, through different types of articles like Game Rant or Screen Rant or that sort of thing on Facebook or anywhere online through Google, a lot of people that are playing this remastered are saying this is the definitive way to play this game, the remastered version of this game,
Right.
because
No, I mean, like to be fair, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I can understand being nostalgic and being an OG and really enjoying the retro games and stuff like that from the past. And some people are into that, but I feel like again, we're in a world that's where these graphics are kind of like the whole instant gratification, where you kind of the has been set so high that it's really hard to go back to some of the older type of graphics and stuff like that, because
the
now, like,
mechanics and vice versa. Yeah,
right, yeah, because the visual clarity is just, it's dumbfounding. It's incredible. It's kind of like the Elon Musk version of a very much older model. You know what I mean? Like it's you know modern day future graphics and stuff like that in comparison to, like, bits and stuff. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that's what it is, though. It's like you're dealing with apples and oranges at this point. It's really
yeah,
hard to go backwards once you've gone forwards. And you can't just go back to, like, old school B films and then
yeah,
watch
yeah,
the Avengers Endgame in like 5K quality and expect to want to go back to the old
yeah.
school TVs and stuff like that on with a B film.
Right. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that though too. I was actually going to ask you a question as well. I mean, when you played Oblivion for the first time, what exactly were your first impressions or expectations of the game? I mean, what did you really think about this game when you go balls out and you're like, what exactly am I going to do here? I mean, did you have that? I mean, what exactly was your experience with that?
The truth is back when I started playing Oblivion, I couldn't get enough of the game. And, I guess maybe this is just a male thought process. At least, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for everybody here, but when you're immersed in a game like that, you're not really thinking about anything other than wanting to just complete everything, touch and play with everything inside the map. And, you know, and if you're kind of like me, where you're trying to you're trying to like break the map, so to speak, and try and do things you're probably not allowed to do in the game. It's kind of like a GTA trying to put a motorcycle on top of a skyscraper. Something crazy. You're really trying to sit there and just have fun with the game, and it just seems like the amount of opportunity almost seems limitless. I mean, obviously the storyline is very fixating and stuff like that, and you can technically go in many different directions, but it does kind of slow down once you've touched a lot of the factions. So I mean, but like I said, that's the ooh and ah factor, is that keeps you completely immersed to the point where it's almost like you feel like the character you're playing, like, because they're so inclusive, you feel like your character's literally part of the storyline, kind of like Skyrim and stuff like that. Like, these NPC characters are having like a real life conversation with you in real life. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
there. There is no thought process beyond that. You're really kind of just saying, okay, what's next?
Yeah. 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 Well, because when I asked you that question, though, for me, though, when I played this game back in the day, the only two things that I actually ended up getting myself into were, the two guilds when I mentioned about the, like the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood, and so. But again, before I even did some of that, I actually eventually worked a little bit into the game itself. Did some side quests and vice versa. But my experience in this game was different because it's like I went straight forward to a guild rather than just exploring. But I think by exploration, uh, I guess in terms of exploration type of implementation of what this game really provides and gets you immersed into, I'm just like, holy shit! It's just like you're getting into a game to where it's like you never played before, and it's like what exactly you're asking yourself, what exactly am I getting myself into? But then and then another thing though too, what I did experience was the leveling system, and with the leveling system in the OG compared to that the remastered is that it was intricate in detail. It was very complex and very different from other role playing games because
Mm-hmm.
you're so used to like playing modern games these days that are role playing games, and the leveling system is very easy to very get into. It's sometimes it can be simplistic, sometimes it can be difficult,
That was
but
actually the most exciting part of it. If I may,
yeah,
like, seeing that bar fill up, you're like, yes.
yeah. Well, what I was talking about with the leveling system though too is the fact that you had to worry about efficient leveling because you can't min max, and you're able to do that now in the remaster. So you can always get a +5 no matter where you're putting your points into, like whether it's strength, endurance, agility, speed, and so. But you still have a little bit of the level scaling in the game, but it's more flexible and I wouldn't say exponential, but it's more flexible, so that way you could be able to just like implement the +5 and +5 and the +5, and not worrying have to like doing the efficient leveling. You had to do that in the OG, and so that's what I had difficult with. And so I think for me though, when it comes to the remaster, it's why I'm playing a lot more than I anticipated, is because you have that flexibility. You have that you don't have to worry about min maxing anymore because you're getting what you're getting from experience. Because you're getting experience from your minor skills, you're getting experience from your other stuff as well. And so I just really think that's where it really makes it more worthwhile doing. So, but that's my opinion, of course.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. Um, like I said, I didn't know what really to expect when I first started playing the game itself. It just, it, like, it was just kind of cool to be able to play like an open world game and stuff like that, and have just the freedom to do whatever you want, and I mean, even if the game, like gameplay aside, you the aesthetic and appeal of the different time that you're playing in. It's not even like modern day times. Like you're playing in a
Yeah.
much different time frame. So I mean, even then, it's kind of like it's the difference between being in modern day culture versus being in like I don't know some like medieval Renaissance fair. You know what I mean? Like obviously there's going to be some different dynamics that are going to have a different type of allure.
Yeah. Yeah. But all right, but I think that's pretty much it for right now. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming in. Just want to do something real quick here before we call it a night and call it for the rest of the weekend. But thank you for tuning in. Greatly appreciated. This is Citizen JV, and thank you for
Thanks for
tuning
having me.
in with my Archamealion friend here. So you guys have a good rest of your weekend, and I'll chat with you guys later. Peace, guys.